money is an interesting thing. And actually what we're doing today is looking at what are these, possessions, and what is this wealth for? And what does Jesus say that the wealth he's giving us is for? And so you must understand, this is it was for me. So as I speak, I'm not speaking because I know, understand, and I'm implementing what I am saying. This is what I learned in the process of preparing to speak to you guys about myself as well. So, the truth is, and this is research I've done for some time, I found that the psychologists who've done research around money, and particularly around money and relationships, and why there's just generally a tug of war there. And it's because money is a deeply spiritual thing. It's a very spiritual thing. And on top of that, money sort of just it's tied to our deepest emotional needs. Fact. It's tied to your need for self-worth. It's tied to your need for independence. It's tied to your need for happiness for some. For some, it's security. For others, it's power. And so many different things for different ones of us. And so the thing that we do is sometimes we just live life and don't really think through what relationship we have with money. Because that relationship that we have with money has a tendency to then determine how we relate with it and whether we have harmony in the way that we live with others. And sometimes our feelings of money and with money are so powerful that we make decisions that are not rational. Decisions that are not rational. You can be anyway, let me just get into it. I'll give you an illustration. For some, money is equal to self-worth. And so if you're here and money is equal to self-worth, it's important that you visit certain restaurants and not others because you can't be seen in some places. I mean, how? And you dress in certain ways because you need to be seen excuse me, you can't just be seen looking, yeah? Money is equal to self-worth or significance. And it's important that that's the way it is for you. And that's just how it is. And when you have money, for those of you who are money is equal to self-worth or significance, you generally have a spring in your step when your account is looking healthy. But when it's empty and dwindling, in places where you're usually the mwenyeji, you don't appear because you're feeling a little not worthy of being in those spaces. And nobody knows, but you feel it. Some of us, money is equal to security. For you, money gives you the ability to control this uncontrollable world. You know that your children's school fees will be paid for, sorted, and fine. And you just enjoy the process of planning. And for you, budgeting is not an issue. You follow a budget, you invest, you do the right things to ensure that your future is secure. Because money for you needs to be controlled, and it represents control and security for you. And then for others, money is equal to happiness. But there's so many personalities and emotions. I'll just deal with the three. But money is equal to happiness. I mean, what do you work so hard for anyway, right? But, you find that they tend to also struggle because they end up in debt, because they overspend, and they consume a lot. And for them, they say, tumia pesa ikuzoe. So now I just want to go into the Bible and just find out, what does Jesus say about money? This passage is not very easy, but we shall try and go slowly. And it's Luke 16, chapter 16, from verse 1 to 13. And it's a parable of this shrewd manager. So from verse 1, Jesus told this story to his disciples. There was once a certain rich man who had a manager handling his affairs. One day, a report came that the manager was wasting his employer's money. So the employer called him in and said, "What is this I hear about you? Get your report in order because you are going to be fired." The manager thought to himself, now what? My boss has fired me. I don't have the strength to dig ditches and I'm too proud to beg. I know how to ensure that I'll have plenty of friends who will give me a home when I'm fired. So he invited each person who owed money to his employer to come and discuss the situation. He asked the first one, "How much do you owe him?" The man replied, "I owe him 800 gallons of olive oil." So the manager told him, "Take the bill and quickly change it to 400 gallons. "And how much do you owe my employer?" he asked the next man. "I owe him 1,000 bushels of wheat," was the reply. "Here," the manager said, "take the bill and change it to 800 bushels. The rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd And it is true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than the children of the light. Here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then, when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. If you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you are untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches of heaven? And if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. So allow me to slow down and go back and just look at this passage again. And we'll split it into three parts. So one is the problem. What's the problem? And the problem here is that this manager was fired. The manager was, and he was fired for a good reason. There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management because you cannot be manager any longer. So first of all, the fact that this manager, the owner, tells the manager, give an account, go and sort it out and come and tell me, I'm like, yo, are you crazy? Someone has stolen from you and you're asking him to go back to the same office to sort out and come back. I'd be like, security, come take this guy and go. And this guy realizes that, the manager. So he realizes he needs to quickly move. He was wasteful, irresponsible, and perhaps quite incompetent. Number two is the solution. So in verse 4, it goes into the solution. This manager decided to act quickly, to make friends quickly, so he could have a place to go after he had left the place of work. Because he was like, I need to sort myself out, because after a short while, I am not going to be here. I only have time to sort out those accounts. And verse 4 says, I know how to ensure that I have plenty of friends who will give me a home when I am fired. He did this so that others would feel obligated to him. So that others would be like, by the way, I owe you one. You stepped in for me, and now I owe you one. They struck a deal, and he knew that he's done a favor for somebody else. And what's interesting is that those guys he struck a deal with, well, I don't know if they did, but the Bible doesn't say that they asked any questions. Do you notice that? He just said, how much do you owe? 800. Okay, write a check for 400. Sour. And the guy writes. And I'm like, didn't he question himself and ask why? Okay, but what happens to nobody asks any questions? And the reality is that's how the world is. We are all trying to survive in every way we can by sometimes doing things that are not right. And sometimes, giving, a favor that is perhaps not the right thing to do at this time or the other. In fact, the governments all over the world, including our own, and organizations have set up fraud units, units that go and try and find out whether you are laundering money. And because every single day there's new ways that people are devising to do all kinds of things so that they can survive and thrive in their future. But the response is what I find very strange. Because of all this, Jesus says, he praises this man for being shrewd. The response is that he praised the man for being shrewd and says, verse 8, the master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly. And then Jesus states in verse 8 and 9, and it is true that the children of the world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of the light. Here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your earthly possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. So there's two things I want us to just keep in mind as we continue. The first one is that the manager has little time. He's fired, so he just has a few days to sort things out and present his report. And just like us, we have a little time. We're on this earth for a short time, and we're going to expire. Our time is coming to an end. So that's the first thing. Secondly, the manager, who's referred to as dishonest, is not set for us as an example of behavior that is good, because he cheated his master. That's not really what Jesus is trying to say. What he's trying to point out is the fact that the worldly men and women, or worldly ways, are done in such a careful process. It's careful, worldly, it's thought through, it is, there's a strategy. It's not just surviving, there's a strategy towards it. So the first thing is that we have a short time and we need to be strategic about how we live. So I want to draw out the lessons, even as we keep those two things in mind. And because the strategy here for this man is so that when he gets out of this workplace, he survives. How Jesus uses that is that when you get out of this world, you have an eternal dwelling place and an eternal home. So here are the lessons. The first one is what you have is a resource. Whether it is a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that God has placed in your hands, it is a resource. And that resource may be money, it may be time, it may be ability in your thinking, it may be gifts and talents that you have, but you have a resource. And verse 9 says, here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you into an eternal home. So what Jesus is trying to achieve from this process is to ask us, can you creatively think in the position that you are in, with what you have, the resource I have given you, how can you creatively benefit others and do things that will help you in the next kingdom when your life here on earth expires? Now, he wants us to use not just 10%, but 100%, because he owns 100%. But 10% is what we feel, if I'm tithing, you kind of have a sense of, I'm fine. I'm tithing 10% of the money that God gave me, and I am good. We need to use our resources for internal investment. So what you have in your hand or in your possession is a resource. Secondly, how we use our resources is a test. How we use our resources is a test. And verse 10 to 12 says, if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you are untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? And when I look at scripture, I think it's John 14, verse 2 to 3. The essence of it is that Jesus says that I have gone to prepare a place for you. And then in 1 Corinthians, it says that it describes the whole process of Jesus and God, that there's many rooms in heaven. There's many rooms in heaven and the streets of gold, and it gives the impression that heaven is in different ways. There's large homes and small homes, and all of us, when we get to heaven, we'll get there. Some of us will go like we've just come out from a flame. Do you have 1 Corinthians so that we can put it up? There it is. By the grace God has given me, I laid a foundation as a wise builder, and someone else is building on it. But each one should build with care. Verse 11, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. Verse 12, if anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each person's work. Verse 14, if what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. If it is burnt up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. Let's go back to verse 14, please. Verse 14 says, if what has been built survives. So I'm guessing this is work that we've done here on earth that benefits others, that has eternal value, goes towards building for us in our kingdom, in the kingdom of heaven. And so if what has been built survives, because it's tested and it has eternal value, then we will receive a reward. Verse 15 says, if it is burnt up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved. So I will be in heaven, but I will suffer loss, even though only as one escaping through the flames. Then there's others, this story gives me the impression, who will have built up massive mansions as a result of work that they've done. So really, we cringe about that 10%. But the truth is that all 100%, as I said before, belongs to God. So what you have in your possession is a resource. And secondly, we've seen that how you use that resource is a test. And then lastly, number 3, how you use your resource determines your master. Let's look at verse 13. No one can serve 2 masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. So, possessions test our ultimate loyalty. Who are we loyal to? Is it God? Will I use them for his kingdom? Will I use them for blessing others? Will I use those resources that he's given me to, just be kind to others? Or will I use the money and be loyal to my own personal desires and my own growth, my own pleasure, my own, and seeking power in this life? The truth is that money and possessions, or God rather, God and possessions, or God and money, are mutually exclusive. You're loyal to one or to the other. And a lot of us are enslaved by money, but we don't really realize it. In fact, a lot of times what happens is you just don't even want to go there. Those are not thoughts we spend our time thinking about. It's like, I just need to get ahead. I need to get things done. And by the way, please remember what I do. I'm a financial advisor. So even as I speak like this, I'm not suggesting in any way that you should not invest and grow your wealth. I am not suggesting that. But even as we do that, we need to be careful to ensure that this money that we're working so hard for does not enslave us. So like I said, God he's not against you owning things. He came so that we might live and live abundantly. But even as we have those things, as we enjoy them, as we go to the Maldives every 6 months and live in huge homes and do all the things we love to do, we have to remember to invest in things that have eternal value. If God says just give, there's so much more where that came from. So when you look at your possessions, we need to shift our thinking to how can I give? What can I give? To whom can I give? These gifts that I have, these opportunities that I have, this money that God has blessed me with. I want to read a poem that I read and I was just like, wow. And it's by a guy called Dan Stevers. And it's the reason why we give. And it's titled, Why We Give. We give because Christians are still being persecuted for their faith. We give because 1.5 billion people live in extreme poverty. We give because our neighbors have not encountered Christ. We give because through our giving, they might. We give to usher in God's kingdom. We give to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because indifference was not an option for Jesus and can't be an option for us. We give to change both our world and our hearts. We give because we worship one God, and it's not money. We give because we were bought at an immeasurably high price. We give because God gave and gives and will never stop giving. That's why we give.